Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a question that's been making headlines and sparking debates all over the globe. Is the US dollar on the verge of collapse? And what role is China's incredible economic growth playing in all of this? This isn't just about numbers on a screen. It affects everything from the price of your morning coffee to global power dynamics. So, grab a seat, because we're going to unpack this complex topic together. First off, let's get one thing straight. The US dollar has been the king of currencies for decades. It's the world's primary reserve currency, meaning central banks everywhere hold vast amounts of it. When countries trade with each other, say Brazil selling coffee to Japan, they often do the transaction in US dollars. This creates a massive, constant demand for the dollar, which has given the United States a unique economic advantage. This status is often called dollar hegemony, but things are starting to shift. For years, we've seen a growing movement called de-dollarization. This is the process where countries actively try to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. Why? Well, there are a few reasons. One major factor is geopolitical. When the US imposes sanctions on a country, it can essentially cut them off from the global financial system because so much of it runs on dollars. This gives the US significant leverage, and some nations are looking for alternatives to avoid that kind of pressure. Enter China. Over the past 40 years, China's economy has experienced one of the most astonishing transformations in history. It has become the world's factory, a tech powerhouse, and a major global investor. As its economic influence has grown, so has its ambition for its currency, the yuan, also known as the renminbi. China is now the world's largest trading nation. It makes sense that they would want more of that trade to be conducted in their own currency. Imagine if you were buying and selling huge amounts of goods every day, but you always had to exchange your money for a foreign currency first. It's less efficient and adds extra cost. So, China has been actively promoting the use of the yuan in international trade, especially with its partners in Asia, Africa, and South America. They've been setting up currency swap lines with other central banks, which are essentially agreements that allow two countries to exchange currencies directly without having to go through the US dollar. For example, China and Russia have been settling more of their energy trade in yuan and rubles. Similarly, China and Saudi Arabia are discussing pricing oil sales in yuan. Since oil has traditionally been priced exclusively in dollars, the so-called petrodollar system, this is a significant development. Another key piece of the puzzle is the BRICS group, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with more countries recently joining. This bloc of emerging economies is openly exploring the creation of a new reserve currency to rival the dollar. While this is still in the very early stages, the fact that these major economies are even having the conversation is a sign of the changing times. They represent a huge portion of the world's population and economic output, and if they decide to move away from the dollar together, it could have a massive impact. Let's take a deep breath. The answer is most likely no, at least not anytime soon. The collapse narrative is often overblown. The global financial system is like a giant, complex web, and the US dollar is at its very center. It's unraveling that would be incredibly difficult and chaotic for everyone, including China. Think about the infrastructure. The US has the deepest, most liquid financial markets in the world. When you want to buy or sell, government bonds seen as one of the safest investments on the planet, it's incredibly easy. There's a level of trust and stability in the US system that has been built up over a century. China's financial markets, while growing, are not yet as open or as trusted by international investors. Their government maintains strict controls over the value of the yuan, which makes many investors hesitant. Furthermore, even China itself holds over $1 trillion in US Treasury bonds. A sudden collapse of the dollar would devalue their own massive holdings. It's a classic case of being interconnected. US collapse would trigger a global economic crisis that would hurt China just as much as anyone else. So, what we're likely seeing isn't a sudden collapse, but a slow and steady transition towards a more multipolar currency world. Instead of one dominant currency, we might see a future with several major currency blocks. The US dollar will likely remain a very important player, but it might share the stage with the Chinese yuan and perhaps the euro. This shift isn't necessarily a bad thing. For the global economy, having more options could create a more resilient and balanced system. It could reduce the risk of a crisis in one country bringing down the entire world's financial structure. For the United States, a gradual decline in the dollar's dominance would have its own set of consequences. It might become more expensive for the U.S. government to borrow money, and American consumers might find that imported goods cost more. On the flip side, it could make American exports cheaper and more competitive, potentially boosting manufacturing at home. The rise of China's economy is an undeniable force shaping the 21st century. Its push to internationalize the yuan is a natural extension of its economic power. While the headlines might scream dollar collapse, the reality is far more nuanced. We're witnessing a gradual evolution, not a revolution. It's a slow-moving tectonic shift in the global financial landscape. The dollar's throne might not be collapsing, but it's certainly getting a bit more crowded. What do you think? Are we heading for a multipolar currency world, or will the dollar remain king for the foreseeable future? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I've read every single one, and I'm really curious to hear your perspective on this. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful and want to understand more about the big economic shifts happening around us, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us create more content like this. Till next time, stay curious.